Is it time to walk away from the talks, Brexit Secretary?
A few hours after they left today's meeting, Cabinet Ministers heard they were being summoned back tomorrow. Long hours of negotiating have produced a text Theresa May might be ready to present to Parliament. A moment of truth, long delayed, could be approaching. In Strasbourg, the EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, was briefing commissioners on the talks so far. The Commission briefed out plans for what would happen if there was no deal. The Vice President of the Commission spelling out that if Britain got heavy, imposing visas on EU visitors, for instance, the EU would retaliate.
If there is no deal, we need to be prepared. And then the basic message here is, we'll do upon you what you will do upon us. So, just have visa-free travel on both sides, and that will make life easier for all our citizens.
Do you know, I don't know why you stand outside my flat every morning. You never get anything.
The morning doorstep vigils at the homes of cabinet ministers like Esther McVey, thought most likely to walk out over any deal, may soon be over. Number 10 is calling in ministers one by one in the hope it can win them over to the draft deal and stop any resignations.
Morning, Mr. Rabb.
I almost worry if you're not here anymore.
Some resignations could be more survivable than others. Mrs May couldn't, for instance, lose a second Brexit secretary after David Davis's resignation. In March, this was a glimpse of one part of the draft agreement as work in progress. Green meant agreed, yellow nearly there. No highlighter, no agreement yet. And the area that took longest to colour in was the backstop arrangement. How do you stop checks going up on the currently unmarked border between Ireland and Northern Ireland as the UK leaves the EU? Recently, the EU has bowed to the UK demand to have a temporary UK-wide customs arrangement. But some Brexiteers are convinced that's a ploy to lock the UK into EU institutions, and they're saying so before they've even seen the text.
If it is as in the reports, it really is about as bad as you could possibly imagine. It is vassal state stuff. We are going to be kept in a kind of economic and political captivity, unable to shape EU legislation, regulation, but having to accept it ourselves, not being able to do free trade deals. And the kicker is that we haven't even really protected the union.
He was piling pressure on those who stayed in the cabinet to quit now, including fellow Brexiteers like the International Trade Secretary Liam Fox. He and the Health Secretary were amongst the first to have one-on-one meetings with the Prime Minister and to take a look at a Brexit treaty that is said to run to 500 pages.
The Prime Minister's going to be working hard to get the best deal for the country, and it could be, let's see how it goes tomorrow, but it sounds as if we're moving things on.
The UK's lead official at the negotiations, Ollie Robbins, has also brokered a declaration on the future relationship. The detailed negotiations on that don't start until after Brexit next year. Some ardent Remainers say if not too much changes in the meantime, they might back the Prime Minister.
I realise I'm going to have to be pragmatic and just see how much you preserve. So long as the agreement preserves open borders for as long as it takes, that's all borders, British borders with Europe, no barriers to trade and investment, for as long as it takes to decide what we're going to change to, if we're going to change, I will vote for it. Falls short of that, chances are I shall vote against it.
A rare emollient voice tonight as hardline Brexiteers brief out the line to take and rush to the microphones.
I think you can take it that this is a widespread feeling across the ERG.
A counter-attack is on the way if there's a cabinet-approved deal to sell.
Our political editor, Gary Gibbon. Well, the Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, emerged from number 10 a few minutes ago. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I think that the important thing tonight is that we will actually look at what's been tabled. I've talked to the Prime Minister about where she thinks we've got to. I've said that I think all the Cabinet will need to read this through. We'll need to discuss it tomorrow afternoon. The important thing is that we do what's best for Britain, what's best for the United Kingdom, and that we deliver a Brexit that the British people will feel fulfills the terms of the referendum.
Well, with me now is the Shadow Brexit Secretary, Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, have you seen what this deal is all about? Have you seen the details?
We haven't seen the details, but we know from the negotiations just how shambolic they've been, and therefore this is highly unlikely to be a good deal.
You're
from the
prejudging
country.
it then?
We will look at the detail of it, but obviously we've been watching very, very closely what's been going on, very close to the negotiations, been working here, talking to people in Brussels, and therefore you know, given where the government has been throughout this episode, this is unlikely to be the breakthrough. This is unlikely to be good for the country. And you've seen the reaction to it already.
But hang on, it sounds as if you're already telling me now, without having seen the details of this deal, that you are probably going to say that it does not pass your 6 tests and therefore will be voted down.
Well, at the very beginning of the process, when the Prime Minister started, we said these are the conditions if you want our support at the end of the exercise. We've been at this for 18 months, watching every twist and turn, and it looks to me like the Prime Minister is a long way from home on our tests. Obviously, we will look at it, we'll look at the detail, but as I say, given the shambolic way, I mean, this has not been a negotiation that is, as it were, genuinely in the national interest. It's been a negotiation about what can the Prime Minister get past her cabinet.
But the Chief Whip, Julian Smith, said tonight on camera, on the record, that he is confident he has the votes, even if, you know, Jeremy Corbyn says you've got to vote against it. So there are at least 20 Labour rebels who will vote with the government.
Well, I've been talking to the Labour Party. We're very clear in our position. We're very clear about our conditions. And I would say that there are not those votes there available for the government. They should be looking on their own side if they want to get this through. And by the reaction, it looks to me as though they're in a lot of trouble.
Where do you stand yourself? Because I'm confused by the Labour position, frankly. All those people there are lining up to go into the Methodist Hall, 3,000 of them, hoping for a second referendum. Are you with them or are you against them?
Well, the position we've taken is look at the decision we're going to have to make. The deal, obviously, what we're talking about today, we'll vote that down if it doesn't meet our tests and call for a general election. If we don't get that, all options must be on the table, and that includes a public vote. That was the agreed position at conference. That's the roadmap for us as we go through these next few weeks, starting really with what's developing and breaking today.
So you could still back that second referendum?
Well, we've got a structured approach. We take each decision when we get to it, but in the event that the deal falls, in the event there isn't a general election, then yes, all options are on the table, and one of those is campaigning for a public vote. But we look at things as they arrive. It's a roadmap, it's a way through the difficult decisions we have to make over the next few months.
But if you are voting against this deal, if there aren't the Labour rebels to vote with the government, you are voting for party before country. You're prepared to see the pound plunge, you're prepared to see the economy go down the tubes because you want to have a general election.
I don't accept that. There is no national interest in voting for the wrong deal or a bad deal. And for the Prime Minister to say this is the best I could cobble together because I've had to have one eye on my cabinet, and you've got to now back a very bad deal because you get even worse, that is not acceptable.
Are you saying this is a vassal state deal?
I will wait and see the detail, but at the moment, I think this is unlikely to be the right deal for the country.
Right. Keir Starmer, thank you very much indeed. Well, even if there is now a deal on the table, there is absolutely no guarantee it'll get through Parliament, as you just heard, leaving businesses still uncertain about the future. Tonight, this programme has learned that one of Britain's biggest wholesale food suppliers, Bidfood, which supplies 40,000 customers, including schools, hospitals and supermarkets, is planning to stockpile in case there is no deal. It follows a similar move by Premier Foods, as our business editor, Siobhan Kennedy, now reports.
Ah, the great British roast, where the family comes together and everything stops.
There might be the warm whiff of a deal emanating from Westminster tonight. It's not gravy, though, but gridlock at Britain's ports that's worrying the maker of Bisto.
Ah, Bisto.
Premier Foods said today it would begin stockpiling raw materials to protect itself in the event of a no deal. A £10 million hit it has no choice but to take.
It's not just Premier. Behind me is one of 20 massive warehouses owned by Bidfood, one of Britain's biggest food wholesalers and suppliers to supermarkets, schools, restaurants, pubs and hotels. But 40% of the food that it distributes comes from abroad. And Channel 4 News has learned that it too plans to stockpile supplies in the event a deal cannot be reached.
Bidfood tonight confirmed it was planning to hold up to 6 weeks' worth of critical stock, especially food used for meals in schools and hospitals. In a statement, it told this programme.
Bidfood has been shaping plans for some time. Our initial assessments have suggested that in the event of a no-deal Brexit, we may need an additional 7,000 pallets of stock. And like many other businesses, we're having to consider alternative warehousing locations to house contingency stock.
The food industry, just like cars and medicines, a stark example of the vulnerability of just-in-time supply chains. A source inside the supermarket Morrison's told us it was busy assessing other routes into the UK by air and sea if Dover grinds to a halt, saying it's their single biggest fear, given nearly a third of what we eat enters via Britain's busiest port. To help smooth that process, Channel 4 News has learned the government has also set aside additional funding to help deal with the onslaught of expected customs checks. The plans seen by this programme show an £8 million support package being prepared by the Treasury, designed, it says, to help the customs industry in the event of a no deal. £5 million is allocated to help fund training, another £3 million to support new technology. But the industry estimates up to 12,000 extra customs agents would be needed to handle as many as 100 million extra declarations. So many believe the money simply isn't enough and has come too late.
This £8 million for customs agencies is only a tiny drop in the ocean, and that's very late in the day. We're really concerned that lots of things won't be ready in time, and even the HMRC's own chief has said that any arrangements post the 29th of March will be suboptimal as far as customs is concerned.
Of course, any government intervention is welcome, but for some, like Premier Foods and Bid Food, perhaps too late. They're voting with their wallets and their pallets to keep the food flowing.
Well, joining me now is Tony Blair's former Director of Communications and now supporter of a second Brexit referendum, Alistair Campbell, and the Conservative MP and Chair of the European Research Group, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Welcome to you both. Jacob Rees-Mogg, you've been tweeting or saying tonight, white flags over Whitehall. What do you mean by that?
This is assuming that the RTE report is right, and it is deeply unsatisfactory that the first reports don't even come to British media, not to Channel 4 News, who you would have thought should know first, about something that is happening affecting the future of our nation. It goes to, what am I saying?
All right.
It does, but it's primarily about the UK.
So you think it's surrender?
Well, everything we've heard, assuming it's accurate, is the white flags going up all over Whitehall, that the customs union would be harder to get out of under the backstop than it is under Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. The standards issue for Northern Ireland means that Dublin will have more say over the rules of Northern Ireland than London or Belfast, and we're paying £39 billion for what?
But you've lost your battle, haven't you? She has outfoxed you. She has run down the clock, she's outfoxed you, and Julian Smith, the Chief Whip, has said that he's got the votes.
Well, I'll believe that when I see it. If you look at the votes against this already, the DUP are going to vote against it. We already have 51 members of the ERG who have gone online to say they will vote against it and stand up for Brexit. And you've got people like Joe Johnson, who are not in the ERG, saying that this sort of deal is vassalage. I think it's the job of the Chief Whip to be confident and say he can win, but he won't win on this. He will lose unless he gets the support of the Labour Party, but you've just heard from Sir Keir Starmer that he won't have that. There may be 20 Labour rebels, but our numbers are much stronger than that.
You agree with him, don't you?
I agree with Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Yes.
I agree.
In terms of the vassal state.
I think Joe Johnson spelt it out. It is vassalage, and we're giving money and we're getting what in return. Now, Jacob and I might come at this from completely different perspectives, but I don't think anybody can pretend. There's not a single person in the country who voted either way in June the 23rd, 2016, who voted for this. And that's why I believe these thousands of people are queuing up tonight to go in to demand that it goes back to the people and they can actually say, is this what you voted?
But if there is a deal, if it goes through Cabinet, if it goes through Parliament, those people out there might as well go to the pub and not waste their time going to your meeting.
I don't agree with you at all, because I'm sorry to agree, well, not sorry, but I agree with Jacob on this one. I don't believe they will have the votes. I don't believe how anybody who voted Brexit can support this, and I don't believe how any Labour MP can actually support this either.
Right. Are you going to make news tonight, Jacob Rees-Mogg, by swinging behind a second referendum? It's the only way out. Second referendum, go back to the country, make your case.
A second referendum is a loser's referendum. We've had the referendum, it was won by Leave. We then had a general election where both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party said that they were committed to implementing the result of the referendum. And that's what we should do. We owe it to democracy to implement the result of the referendum, the biggest vote in our nation's history, not to change it just because a few people who lost are unhappy.
Is the consequence of everything that is happening today a permanent split in the Tory party, the end of the Tory party as we know it?
I think there is a risk that we are in 1846 territory. That if the Prime Minister wishes to push ahead with this, if the Cabinet doesn't stop her, it is very divisive for the Conservative Party, though the Labour Party is quite split as well.
It is quite split, isn't it? But Jeremy Corbyn is determined not to give you what you want.
Well, he seems to be at the moment. But again, Jeremy Corbyn, there are lots of facets to Jeremy Corbyn. One of them is that he says he listens to the members. Labour Party members, by a massive majority, want this put back to the people. And if it is put back to the people, they want to remain in the European Union. And I suspect that where we are heading, actually, is to a debate, the country deciding, do you want no deal and all the chaos that it brings, or do you actually want no Brexit, which is what all these people want?
I mean, we're in the heart of Westminster, Westminster Abbey, the Houses of Parliament, 10 Downing Street, this meeting here tonight. This is the fulcrum of British politics today. We are at a very perilous moment for this country, aren't we? Whatever happens.
You're absolutely right. Today is potentially a pivotal moment. Assume that what's been leaked is accurate and the future of our nation for a generation is being determined, and it is being determined badly and against so much of what the Prime Minister herself said, that she said we would be out of the customs union, that no Prime Minister could divide up Northern Ireland, and that we would take back control of our laws, our money and our borders. This is not what's happening, and we need to get back to what the Prime Minister promised the electorate. She must stick to her word.
But she is also the Prime Minister of all Britons. She was elected to represent the entire country, a country that is hopelessly and bitterly divided. Isn't the only thing she can do is to come up with a compromise that leaves everyone unhappy, but the majority of people not totally distraught?
But that's what she's tried to do, and she's failing to do that. She, I think, has gone into this thinking, right, you've got people like me over here who, you know, think this is a terrible thing that's happening to the country and you have to do what you can to stop it. People over there like Jacob who think no deal is fine, and she's sort of saying, I'll try and do something in the middle. But there's something in the middle doesn't add up.
What would you have done differently in her position?
In her position, I think the problem was, when she, after the referendum, she came out and instead of actually trying to bring the country together, I think she went far too far to try to keep Jacob's people happy.
And look what's happened. He's just as unhappy as he was.
Because she cannot deliver what it is that Jacob and his people want, and therefore she's ended up pleasing absolutely nobody.
You can never be satisfied, can you, Jacob, when it comes to this?
What I would say is that she should have listened, actually, to Michel Barnier, who said very clearly at the beginning, you can be a member of the European Union or you can be a third country. And the government has tried to argue for a middle course that nobody was offering. She should either have backed Alistair or she should have backed my position. This middle muddle fiddle fuddle is not working and is humiliating for the nation.
Middle muddle fiddle fuddle. If there's another referendum, right, if it does come to that, the country surely will be just as divided then as it is now.
Well, the country is divided, and if you did have another referendum on the outcome of the negotiations, then of course there'd be a bitter debate. But what I think has been really interesting about this referendum is the country is just not uniting around it at all. And I think what would happen, we had an ill-informed debate, we had a lot of lies told, we had a lot of fantasies peddled. We now do have a more informed electorate. I think we could have an informed debate between, I suspect it will be between no deal or no Brexit.
No middle muddle fiddle fuddle here. We're trying to be as crystal clear as possible. Jacob Rees-Mogg, Alistair Campbell, thank you very much indeed.